What happens when a powerful, sleepless CEO is saved by the scent of vanilla, left behind by a janitor who doesn't even want to be known? Nathan Cole had the world at his feet, but no peace in his soul, until Lena Hart, a hidden talent with a humble past, changed his life forever. This is a story of secret rescues, dangerous sabotage, and a love born from the quietest moment. But will their world survive the storm ahead? Watch till the end to find out. Where are you watching from? Tell us in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more emotional African stories like this one. The night of April 15th wrapped Manhattan in its usual blanket of city lights and whispered secrets. Inside the grand ballroom of Cole Tower, the atmosphere sparkled with champagne and ambition. Nathan Cole, 32, the enigmatic CEO of Cole Essences, stood near the center of it all, polished, poised, yet unmistakably detached. A sea of perfumed socialites buzzed around him, praising the newest line of luxury scents, but Nathan barely heard them. His insomnia had grown worse over the years, a constant fog dulling even his sharpest instincts. Smiles came easily to him, but sleep did not. Somewhere near the bar, a hand slipped something into his drink. Silent, deliberate. Nathan sipped it without notice, the bitter aftertaste masked by the cocktail's citrus. Within minutes, the chandelier above him began to blur. The music seemed to stretch and echo, unnatural and slow. He pressed a hand to his temple, murmuring an apology as he slipped away from the crowd. The corridor outside his office swayed beneath his feet, his vision tunneling into darkness. He staggered into his office and collapsed onto the leather couch. The city skyline glittered behind him, but Nathan saw nothing. Then, just before losing consciousness, he breathed in a soft scent. Vanilla, warm and familiar, laced with something he couldn't name. A hug in the air. A voice broke past the haze in his mind. His own, confused and soft. "Who's here?" That scent, it feels like peace. But there was no reply, just the gentle hush of night. Unseen behind the cracked door, Lena Hart stood frozen. She'd only meant to mop the hallway. One glimpse of Nathan's slumped body, his skin pale and clammy, had sent panic fluttering in her chest. He didn't look like the tycoon in magazines. He looked vulnerable, human. She didn't think, only acted. Her arms strained as she dragged him away from open view and onto the couch, whispering calming words more for herself than him. When she reached into her cleaning cart and pulled out the little lavender vanilla sachet she'd stitched herself, she hesitated for a second, then left it beside him. "You'll be okay," she whispered, then slipped out, leaving only the scent behind. Morning crept over the city, washing the skyline in pale gold. Nathan stirred, blinking against the light. For the first time in years he felt rested. No headache, no pounding heart, just stillness. He sat up slowly, glancing around his office, his brow furrowed. Something was different. The scent was still there, faint but comforting. He clutched the sachet in his hand, its soft fabric warming in his palm. It wasn't corporate, it wasn't designed, it was personal, homemade. And it was the only clue. The days that followed found Nathan more alert, more curious than he'd been in months. But the sachet remained a mystery. None of his perfumers recognized the blend. None of his staff could tell him who might have entered his office. But across the city, in a cramped apartment in Queens, Lena Hart packed her cart for another shift. She lived quietly, scraping by, blending scents in her spare time using leftover herbs and oils bought from corner stores. She never expected anyone to notice her work, especially not him. To Lena, the man on the couch was just someone in trouble. She didn't need gratitude. She didn't need him to know her name. And yet, the memory lingered. The weight of him in her arms, the look of confusion and pain on his face, the way his breathing evened out when her sachet rested near his chest. She told herself it didn't matter. She told herself to forget. But something had changed that night. Something neither of them could see coming. Nathan couldn't stop thinking about the scent. It haunted him. Not in a troubling way, but like a half-remembered dream that lingered on the edges of his thoughts. He carried the sachet with him, hidden in his suit pocket like a secret talisman. Every time he caught a faint trace of vanilla, his heart beat faster, chasing ghosts in the air. None of his staff admitted to creating it. None of the perfumers at Cole Essences could replicate it. The scent was intimate, personal, too raw and beautiful to come from a corporate lab. That truth gnawed at him. Someone, somewhere, had saved him. and he needed to find out who. Late one evening, as the last of the employees trickled out, Nathan found himself wandering the quiet hallways. The building, usually so alive with movement and light, now felt like a cathedral of silence. He turned a corner, and that's when it happened. A breeze, stirred by the shifting air of the ventilation system, carried it to him. Vanilla, soft and unmistakable. His breath caught. He followed the scent with deliberate steps until he spotted her. She was wiping down the glass panels near the executive conference room, her brown hair pulled into a loose braid, her cleaning cart beside her. Lena's heart moved with quiet grace, unaware that she'd become the center of a search she never expected. Nathan stopped in his tracks, watching for a moment before speaking, his voice cutting through the hush. You? I smell that vanilla again, just like that night. Have we met before? Lena's heart leapt into her throat. Her hand stilled on the cloth, and she turned slowly to face him. I'm just a janitor, Mr. Cole, she said softly. Maybe you've mistaken me for someone else. But Nathan stepped closer, eyes narrowing, not in suspicion but in curiosity. I don't think I have, he said. That scent, it's not from any of our lines. It's you, isn't it? He studied her face, searching for some flicker of confirmation. She hesitated, then lowered her eyes. It was something I made, just a little experiment, for myself. He nodded slowly, intrigued. You made it, he repeated, more to himself than her. Then, unexpectedly, he offered, would you ever consider working in the lab? I need a new project, something different, something real. Lena blinked, stunned. I don't have a degree. I'm not qualified to be in your lab. I'm not looking for degrees, he replied. I'm looking for instinct. You have it. That scent? It did more for me than anything my company has ever made. The silence stretched between them. Lena looked down at her hands, rough from long shifts and cleaning solutions. Everything in her life had taught her not to hope too much. Yet something in Nathan's tone, earnest, open, told her this wasn't just a fleeting gesture. This was real. I'll try, she said at last, her voice quiet but steady. A few days later, she stood in the smallest lab space Cole Essences had to offer, surrounded by gleaming vials and polished counters. It felt like stepping into a dream she wasn't sure she deserved. Her fingers trembled as she uncapped her first creation, an herbal blend inspired by her childhood summers in her grandmother's garden. She handed the bottle to Nathan, her breath held. He closed his eyes as he inhaled. His expression changed, softening with something close to awe. You call this simple? He said. This is extraordinary. Then, without hesitation, he declared, starting today, you're my assistant perfumer. Lena's eyes widened. Are you sure? I've never been more sure, he said. And just like that, her life began to change. Lena's world shifted quietly but completely. Gone were the long nights scrubbing marble floors under flickering lights. Now she spent her evenings beneath soft lab lamps, her hands steady as she mixed oils and botanicals she'd only ever dreamed of using. Nathan kept her close, not just as an assistant, but as a quiet presence he found himself seeking out more than he intended. She worked with care and precision, crafting test blends that spoke of memory and feeling, not market trends. Her modest confidence intrigued him, especially in a building full of people who tried too hard to impress. One evening, they stood over a table scattered with tiny glass bottles. Outside, the city roared, but in the lab, there was only stillness. Nathan leaned in, examining a blend she'd created with bergamot and rosemary. This one, he murmured. It reminds me of something calm, like a summer night after rain. Lena smiled softly. It's based on that, my grandmother's porch in July. He looked at her, longer than he probably should have. You create stories, not just scents. She blushed under his gaze, ducking her head. I'm just learning. No, he said, voice lower now, more certain. You're teaching me. Their fingers brushed as she reached for a dropper, and she froze, the air thick between them. Nathan didn't move away, but he didn't push either. That moment passed like a ripple over still water, delicate and charged. From then on, something unspoken hung between them, fragile but undeniable. But outside the lab's soft glow, shadows stirred. Vanessa Bray, the company's ambitious COO, had taken notice. She had worked beside Nathan for years, climbing the ranks with practiced charm and a ruthless edge. His sudden attention to the janitor girl, as she sneered behind closed doors, set something sharp burning in her chest. When she found a lavender vanilla sachet tucked into Nathan's office drawer, her smile turned cold. She claimed it was hers, said she'd left it to comfort him that night. When questioned, she gave just enough detail to sound believable. Around the office, rumors bloomed like rot. Whispers trailed Lena in the elevator, in the break room. "She's just trying to climb," someone said. "From mop to millionaire." Lena heard the words but said nothing. She'd spent a lifetime learning to stay small, to stay quiet. Still, the unease burrowed in her chest. Nathan, too, sensed a shift. Lena spoke less in their meetings. She avoided his gaze. One night, as they packed up late, he asked, "Did I do something? You've been distant." She hesitated. "I overheard Vanessa," she said finally, voice tight. "She says you'll get bored, that I'm just some charity case you're indulging." Nathan's expression hardened. "That's not true," he said quietly, stepping closer. "She doesn't know me, and she certainly doesn't know you." Lena looked up at him then, her eyes wide and vulnerable. I don't want to be a mistake." "You're not," he said. "You're the first real thing I've felt in years." Still, doubt clung to her. She poured herself into the work, letting the scent speak where words failed. Each fragrance she created carried a piece of her. Notes of lavender for courage, citrus for clarity, warm spice for hope. Nathan noticed. He always noticed. And on the nights she stayed late, he slept better. The insomnia that had ruled his life for years loosened its grip, if only a little. He didn't understand it, didn't try to. He only knew that when Lena was near, the silence wasn't so heavy. He was beginning to think she wasn't just curing his sleeplessness, she was waking him up. The launch of Silent Bloom was meant to be the defining moment of Lena's blossoming career. The entire Manhattan headquarters of Cole Essences buzzed with anticipation. Industry giants, celebrities, and the press gathered under shimmering chandeliers to witness the debut of the fragrance that had captivated everyone who sampled it. Lena stood just off stage, her palms damp, her heart pounding. Nathan had told her earlier that day, "No matter what happens tonight, you've already changed this company. You've changed me." Those words played in her head like a lifeline. As the countdown began and the scent dispersal system whirred to life, something felt wrong. A sharp hiss sliced through the air, louder than it should have been. The machines trembled. Before Lena could react, a violent crack erupted from the stage display. A split second later, flames burst upward, chaos swallowing the elegance of the evening. Screams echoed, guests scattered. The scent of burning plastic and perfume filled the room like poison. Lena turned toward the source, eyes wide with horror. "Grayson," she started, instinctively calling out, but Nathan was already moving. Through smoke and sparks, he sprinted toward her. "Lena, get back," he shouted, shoving her to safety as another explosion tore through the display. The blast threw him backward, his body crashing against a table with a sickening thud. "No," she screamed, scrambling to him. He was bleeding, unconscious, his suit jacket singed. She cradled his head, shaking. "Nathan, please, I can't lose you." Security finally rushed in. Fire extinguishers hissed. Medics arrived. Lena refused to leave his side as they carried him away. Her mind swirled, heartbreaking. Somewhere in the crowd, Vanessa stood in the shadows, her expression unreadable. But beneath the calm facade, she was already setting her next move into motion. Days passed. Nathan lay in a hospital bed, bandaged and pale, but breathing. Lena barely left his side. Each morning she brought a fresh sachet, chamomile, bergamot, clove, hoping one might soothe his healing mind. When his fingers finally twitched and his eyes fluttered open, Lena exhaled a shaky breath of relief. "You're awake," she whispered, her voice cracking. His voice came faint, dry. "You're safe. Good." She held his hand tightly. "Don't do that again. Don't ever." But he cut her off with a weak smile. "I'd do it every time. You saved me, remember? It was my turn." That night, a new fear struck. A message arrived for Lena, an anonymous note asking her to meet a courier for a fragrance sample review. Thinking it was from Nathan's team, she followed the instructions. But instead of a lab, she was led to a deserted warehouse by the riverside. She realized too late it was a trap. Bound and blindfolded, she sat shivering in the cold. Then footsteps echoed. Vanessa's voice followed, cold and clear. "You really thought you could take my place? That he'd love you?" Lena didn't respond. Her fear was too real, her anger too raw. Vanessa stepped closer. "Tonight you disappear. No more perfume princess." But just as Vanessa raised her hand, a crashing sound rang out. The warehouse doors flew open. Nathan stumbled in, still bandaged, eyes burning. "Touch her, and I swear you'll regret it." Vanessa froze, stunned. Her hired thugs fled instantly. Nathan rushed to Lena, untying her with shaking hands. "I followed the scent," he murmured. "Vanilla and vetiver. I knew it had to be you." Tears streamed down her face. "You shouldn't have come, you're hurt." "I'd come for you, broken or whole," he said, "every time." Police sirens pierced the night. Vanessa was arrested, her schemes unraveling at last. But Nathan had only one focus: Lena, safe in his arms, her heartbeat echoing against his chest like a second chance he refused to lose. The hospital room was quiet again, but this time it didn't feel like an ending, it felt like a beginning. Nathan lay propped up against white pillows, his wounds healing, but his eyes never left Lena, who sat curled in the chair beside him, her fingers gently brushing the edge of his bandage. The chaos of the launch, the explosion, the kidnapping, it all felt like a surreal blur now. Only this moment mattered. "You saved me again," he murmured, his voice still hoarse. "You always do." Lena shook her head, a faint, tired smile crossing her lips. "I just couldn't lose you," she said quietly. "Not after everything. Not after you gave me a world I never thought I belonged to." He reached for her hand, and she laced her fingers through his. The silence that fell between them was full of truth, heavy with feelings they no longer had to hide. For Nathan, Lena wasn't just the woman who'd made him sleep again. She was the one who'd taught him how to breathe. Weeks passed, and with each day, Nathan grew stronger. Lena returned to the lab, but this time she didn't just walk in like a visitor. She stepped in like a leader. The board initially resisted her presence, but Nathan shut down every whisper of dissent. "She's not just part of this company," he told them. "She is its future." Her fragrances now carried her name on the bottle, not as a footnote, but as a signature. Heart by Cole. They sold out within hours of launch. One weekend, Nathan surprised her with a long drive upstate. The trees turned from steel and concrete to golden maples and dark evergreens. When they pulled into a quiet ridge in Vermont, Lena gasped. Before them stretched an open meadow, wildflowers swaying in the breeze. "This," he said, stepping out and turning to face her, "is the land I bought, for you, for your work, for your dreams." She stood stunned, the wind tugging gently at her jacket. "You bought this for me?" He nodded, eyes steady. "You once said you didn't need the world, just one cent that mattered. So let's build it here, together." And then he reached into his coat pocket, pulled out a small velvet box, and knelt in the field. "You're the only fragrance I've never been able to replicate, Lena Hart. Will you marry me?" She covered her mouth, eyes shimmering. "I don't need mountains or meadows, Nathan. I just need you." She reached down, pulling him up into an embrace. "Yes, yes, I'll marry you." Their wedding was held months later on that very ridge, beneath a canopy of trees and soft string lights. Lena wore a simple white dress with a sprig of thyme tucked behind her ear. Nathan's suit carried a small sachet of the original vanilla blend she'd made. It wasn't just a ceremony, it was a full circle. The woman who had once mopped the floors of Cole Essences now stood beside its CEO, not behind him. They vowed to build something new, something honest, something lasting. Back in New York, Vanessa faced charges for fraud and attempted harm, her reputation destroyed. The board formally apologized to Lena, and Darren, Nathan's younger brother, sent a letter, no longer bound by their father's expectations, thanking Nathan for breaking free so he could too. In time, Cole Essences expanded. Lena's creations became global bestsellers, not because they were trendy, but because they told stories. Their story. Their first co-creation, Second Breath, became the signature of the brand's rebirth. One evening, standing in the lab where it all began, Nathan wrapped his arm around Lena and whispered, "Let's have kids. A whole family. Running through the fields, mixing scents, laughing." She leaned her head against his chest, heart full. "I never thought I'd get this life," she said. "Thank you, Nathan." He kissed the top of her head and whispered, "You gave it to me first." Life lesson from the story. Sometimes the greatest transformations begin in the quietest corners. Lena Hart was never supposed to be seen, not in a world obsessed with power, prestige, and perfection. But her kindness, her quiet talent, and the courage to stay true to her passion became the spark that changed everything. Nathan Cole, A man hardened by pressure and haunted by sleepless nights found peace not in success, but in someone who saw him as more than a title. This story reminds us that value isn't always found in resumes or grand gestures. It's in the subtle fragrances of compassion, humility, and perseverance. It tells us that love, when grounded in honesty and mutual respect, can rise through any circumstance, whether born from a cleaning cart or a CEO's corner office. And most importantly, it teaches us that where we begin does not define where we belong. Lena walked through doors not meant for her and ended up reshaping the world inside them. Let her story be a reminder that no dream is too small and no background too humble for something extraordinary to grow. Now it's your turn. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments. And if this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another beautiful tale of love, resilience, and unexpected destiny.